Hello, thank you for joining City Room. I'm Steve Pappas, editor at the Times-Argus. Today I have founder of Campaign for Vermont, Bruce Lisman. Bruce, thank you for joining me.
Thanks for having me, Steve.
A lot of different things we can talk about. First and foremost, tell viewers, why are you doing this? What are you doing?
I'm glad you asked. Thank you. Campaign for Vermont is a completely nonpartisan organization. It's a coalition of people who think there's a better way in Vermont. And so in the 2 years we've been around, we have more than 10,000 Facebook likes, and we have nearly 1,000 partners, which would make us not only a fast-growing operation, but among the largest, if you will, organizations like us. So we're an advocacy group for good ideas. We founded it. It was two others and me. We founded it almost 2 years ago. And it was out of really love for the state. I grew up in Burlington. I went to local schools in Burlington and the University of Vermont. And even though I left for a career, was always part of the community and was on some boards and was in Vermont often with my family. I think we're taking an approach that is completely non-political. We're not connected to a political party, left or right. We don't consider ourselves liberal or conservative. We have some practical ideas. We'd like to engage in discussion, and with a coalition of people behind our organization, ask the legislature and the governor to take a look at our ideas and even take them.
Mm-hmm. What are some of those ideas?
Oh gosh, it's a good question, but we've focused recently on the budget. Mm-hmm. Actually in two separate pieces. We've spent a considerable amount of time talking about education, our energy policies. We've talked early on about healthcare, and we've talked a lot recently about transparency in government. And if I could just spend a moment on that, just to maybe give your audience a sense of what we care about and why, and how passionate we are. This is a government for the people. We elect them, we get to choose, and these are the people we've chosen to govern us. That deal we make with them is with an expectation they would tell us all that they're doing and why. But the truth is, though this is a small state with a relatively small budget by comparison to other larger states, $5 billion plus is an awful lot of money to spend and raise in form of taxes and grants. But the equal truth is that they aren't able to tell us how well the money is spent, or even in some cases where it's spent. And the worst part of it is, it's not clear to us that our government understands how well the money is spent. So we have focused on issues of transparency, not only making it easy for you, part of the media, to understand how well money is spent, but make it easy for me, a casual citizen, not wanting to spend hours on a website. But other states have done it. We can do it. Better reasoning is, not only will it make us feel like we're responsible for how our vote is given, and bringing back accountability in this process, but it would enable us to do something more than administer a government. So if you don't have the numbers, if you don't know who the client is, or how well the money is spent, or what money you actually need to get a job done, then you can barely administer. And what we'd want from our government is leadership and management. And frankly, at this stage, they're beginning to get the picture. I think we've had a lot to do with that. More recently, we've written about ethics in our government. What we've said is, any casual interview you do with anyone in the state, and they're likely to say, if asked, we probably have ethics laws or regulations on the books today. And the answer is, we really don't. We're one of 3 or 4 states in the country without requirements for disclosure of conflicts of interest or financial disclosure for those who run for statewide office, or having an ethics panel that would opine about what's proper use of influence or even judgment.
Mm-hmm. What you're calling for is more responsible government, in short. Is the implication there that the government system that we have in place right now is it broken?
In a way, it is. Participatory democracy, whether it's one party or 5 parties, enables voters, the populace at large, whether they vote or not, to know how well the government is doing. Are they solving your problem with certain needs? Are they solving my problems? Are they improving the quality of our education? Are there easy ways to see if we're creating new workers for clearly it's a requirement to create a new and younger workforce here. Are we doing those things or are we not? Is it easy to see or isn't it? So in one state, for example, you can go on their website and find out where economic development dollars are spent. You can find out which communities, and within that, you could find out which companies, and you can find out further how many of them have hit their targets. It's an easy thing. We don't have a lot of economic development dollars, but it's an example of what another state can do on one subject that matters to them. A government that works well is a government that keeps in mind that it's about the people, not about the government.
What spurred you to action, you and the other founders? What was it that as you sat around, you said, we need to form Campaign for Vermont because?
Because none of us wanted to affiliate in an official capacity with a political party. I was a lifelong Democrat, though I've given up that kind of an affiliation. And one of my partners, I think, is probably a Democrat, and the other is almost certainly an independent, as I am today. We thought there might be a different, more interesting way that not only suited, if you will, my interests and skills, but would give the citizens of Vermont, people who care, people like you in the media, an alternative path to consider other options. Rather than get involved with the politics, which is an interesting business, but not for me, we thought we'd come at it through an advocacy effort, not be a think tank, because we're more activist than that, but thinking. And because we've spent a lot of time, not just me, but my partners, but I've spent a lot of time on the road talking to people one-on-one, it has to be 600 or 700 separate groups of people that I've met with, and we've done community forums in a dozen or so towns. And honestly, every Rotary we've ever created here, I think I've either my partners or I have spoken there. And after a while, I think we get a real understanding of what issues are on people's minds, and even what kind of solutions they have for problems they might even pose. That's a form of constructive idea generation. And we've taken those ideas and maybe in some cases dressed them up or added some context, but that's where most of our ideas have come from. And really, that's the best approach I think we could take. That's given us, though, a path that says we're not tied to a political party, we're not tied to the business of politics. We can offer our ideas, we believe in them, advocate for them, and whatever power we have in the legislature or with this administration is the people who have joined our coalition.
So by pinpointing the issues and not being political, are you trying to offer solutions that are also apolitical?
I think our solutions are apolitical. Of course, it's all in the eyes of the beholder. Oftentimes, an idea gets tied up with what you think and what I might experience. But if you look at our ideas, whether they're on education or energy or the budget, they're I'd say in the pragmatic scheme of things, you could imagine them being left of center in some cases or right of center in some cases. I don't think, frankly, it matters. And oftentimes that very definition is more a function of how you think, for example, than how we present it. The idea really is to build a coalition of people and organizations to get behind ideas that make sense, to give, if you will, competition to other ideas, many of which don't really work.
What are the key issues right now that you feel are really shaping the discussion in Vermont?
Well, healthcare kind of.
I should have said other than healthcare.
I'm glad you said that, but 'cause I was going to ask you what you thought, because healthcare kind of dominates headlines and the airwaves and the internet and the blogs, and it's sort of a solar eclipse at this point, because it's not just at the federal level, it's at the state level, and
Right.
it seems as if it's a nationwide convulsion over the sites themselves. The Affordable Care Act is the law of the land. It's going to happen, but what it's done is the process has exposed our governments as largely incompetent or with no better than stone fingers. And in their rush to try to find solutions to problems, they've failed in so many different ways. It makes us want to turn away from the process itself, including in the state. But the other issues are really important. But it's also important to separate things that bother us a lot today, but next year might not bother us or might not be so important. We look at the budget itself. My partner Tom Pelham has recently written a very good piece called Shipwreck Ahead. It echoes an earlier piece that we did that talks about a budget that's growing at a rate of, frankly, twice the rate of our state economic growth. In a state that's not growing at all, virtually zero population growth. It's an older state, second oldest in the country, outside of Greater Chittenden County, probably the oldest. And like so many counties in this country, we have counties with population loss, and with that, the loss of a commercial center. These are really urgent issues because today they're numbers, but tomorrow they have real policy implications. We have answers, and it revolves around economic prosperity, shared prosperity, where real incomes rise because jobs are created, more jobs than there are people to fill them, which I think is a good thing, and with the opportunity for reinvestment dollars. The offset to that is you need transparency at minimum to neutralize high taxes and to create a government which really connects with the people it serves. And if we start to do those things, then I think it's possible for those who are attracted to the northern tier, if you will, in the east, or a state like ours that prides itself on our environment and how we live and the culture that we bring with us, caring for neighbors, then this will be a more attractive place to do business and a more attractive place to create jobs. It's the answer for so many different things. Harken back to transparency and how well we spend our money. The same percentage of our population is in poverty or near poverty today as was true 10 or so years ago. A big recession is right in the middle of that period, but the fact is that those numbers haven't changed for a really long time. At some point, you have to ask yourself, well, could we have spent that money better? Or are there different approaches we can take? Or if you will, as my partner Tom would say, the stovepipe approach that we often take with people gets in the way of treating people as if they were clients and the most important person in the room. So those issues of transparency and driving for economic prosperity in a shared way and economic powerhouse of our own definition are things that are very close to the center of what we're talking about, and they have some urgency to them. Today, it's just numbers. Tomorrow, it's real policy issues, and that's what I think will dominate when you aren't putting healthcare on the front page every single day, you may start putting on the front pages, what are we going to do about our economy? And how are we going to solve issues of poverty? And by spending this amount of money, how could we have the best education system in the world, not just in New England?
A lot of what you are talking about, as you say, are mistakes that have been made in the past, interpretations in the past, and you and your group are very forward-looking. Do you have specific plans ready to go that you can bring before the legislature and say, we're pretty sure this will fix this particular issue? And if so, what would one of those be?
It's a really important question for us. So how do we demonstrate to our partners and to people who are thinking of partnering with us that we could bring success for our efforts and accomplish what politicians find it difficult to accomplish? Remember, we have mostly a one-party system here. it's what we've chosen, so it is what it is. We don't pretend to be an alternative party. We are offering up alternative ideas, some of which have been proposed by members of either one of those parties. I think initially we're going to start at what I hope will be attainable levels. The good news is that both the administration and the legislature are cheerfully taking some of our ideas, or at least some of our slogans, for their own. Good for them. They should take more. It's free. It's on our website. We talk about it every day. And so creating a consensus around building a shared prosperity, a broad-based, diversified, dynamic economy, is one that both in the administration and parts of the legislature are part of their everyday conversation. So that's one way we show success, not by just counting the number of times the governor takes phrases that seem pulled from our material, or when a legislature talks about that, but we'd like to push some of these ideas into the mainstream. Forget where it came from. We don't require footnoting or credit. The other way, of course, is the nature of the political process. We need to be in the State House itself. And we've told people we have some ideas, and we'll be in the legislature with ideas about how to create legislation to solve a problem. We thought we'd start with ethics. First, because 46 or 7 other states have things that we ought to have, not just because they have them and we don't. Vermont likes to walk its own path. And it is a legislature that is, they're not volunteers, but clearly they're working beyond their pay grade, I think, if you will, for the hours they put in. But still, we have lots of laws in this country and in this state that are designed to protect the many against the few who would break those laws. In the case of ethics regulation, we think it is a baby step and an easy one toward greater transparency. Start there. We have some specific ideas we're going to address more formally later, but ideas about creating a package of, if you will, rules around ethics in government that you and I, as just common citizens sitting in a diner someplace discussing it, would say, that seems reasonable. Not burdensome, but reasonable. And from there, I think we could build a pretty good case for greater transparency in government and take what are now just words, the administration saying performance-related budgeting, and the legislature talking about results-based outcomes, and turn it into something more robust with more energy behind it, which is to really offer transparency, not just telling you, a citizen, how it works, but managing it so that they know where best to invest.
So the measure for you is not necessarily numbers. You're not necessarily eyeballing, we want to see the workforce in Vermont increase by X number of jobs or a percentage basis. You're looking for tangible discussion and results at a policy level. You don't have a goal specifically or a plan specifically to bring more jobs to Vermont.
Well, we have ideas about doing that. We'll have some ideas out shortly about economic development, though we phrase it differently. It's not the only good idea, but they're good ideas, and I think I can give you some samples. I think it's easy to say, and maybe if we were in politics we would say, if we do this one thing, the economy will be better. Whereas we believe it's probably 5 or 6 big things and 15 or 25 things below it. We think convincing our government that there are 3 or 4 really urgent things to focus on over a long period of time, and getting certain things done in the legislature will go a long way toward achieving those things.
Are you worried that your approach is too heady and academic for actual methods of affecting change?
No, not at all. For one thing, we're not a think tank. If you read any of our stuff, the very short versions, the medium-sized versions, the very long versions, they generally run in plain spoken English, and if you want to search out the footnotes or the proof of the pudding and all that, it's there. We make it really compact. We define the problem, offer up a couple of ways to look at it, and then a solution. So we're not whining because we bring an answer to it. And I think it's really straightforward. When we put up something on our website about education, I guarantee you one thing, we're going to have more traffic than just about anybody else for the next 48 hours. It's a topic people care about. That's not heady, though it might be. It's urgent. If you're a mom or dad with kids in the school, you care a lot about the quality. If you're 75 years old and living on a fixed income and your property taxes go up by 5 or 7% a year, that matters a lot to that person. If you think there's something bigger in the world than just competing with, I don't know, New Hampshire or something, and achievement scores, then people like that are coming in and saying, wait a minute, what about Singapore and Finland and 12 other countries that do just find a way? That's not heady, and I know how you meant it. I think we do smart stuff. We're all about getting results and changing the direction of our state in the sense of a strategic plan. If you see all that we do when we're done, it'll be a terrific plan.
What's the reaction been?
Well, initially, I would say stunned. People friends were saying, huh? What was that you're doing? And early on, we introduced ourselves with some radio ads, and people said, interesting, but what are you doing? Who's running for office here? Is there some business that connects to this? So we had to get through that process, but today I think we're largely accepted as an outfit that's got a place in, if you will, the advocacy world, but focused on public policy, the ease by which people are prepared to take our ideas, if you will, absorb them and throw them out as if they had never read our stuff, says that our ideas resonate. And the fact that we can attract 10,000 Facebook likes or 1,000 partners in a short period of time tells you we're doing something that resonates. If we see each other 12 months from now, I hope I have 25,000 Facebook likes and 2,500 partners. I don't know if we will or not, but I believe the direction we're going in will continue to draw people to us. And with more people behind us, that gives us more power to make change. And for people out there who say, I'm looking for an alternative, we're it.
But you're not but you're apolitical.
Yeah, it gives us the advantage of not getting into the mud and talking about the business of politics, of which I care a little.
So no politics, no business behind this. People who would be interested to hear what your different thoughts are, how do they find you? Are you looking for money? Who's financing this?
We're looking for supporters. They can find us easily. For one thing, we're now running TV ads, our first. We've tried other kinds. We've tried internet ads and online and things like that, and radio ads. We've got a TV ad that many people have seen, apparently, with more behind it coming. And that introduces us to a new audience. And we'd like them to do nothing more than join us as a partner or like us on Facebook. And that gives us fuel, gives us more influence, I believe, in our state. And also, for every person who signs up, it tells 5 other people that it's safe to join. I've funded most of this since we began. I really believe that it was such a different approach that we'd have to prove to people like you, but others, that this was not only a dynamic idea, this was an idea that's also practical and would get results. I think we have. And so we've said to others that this is a moment where we hope to make this completely sustainable, and that means raising money from others.
You have to admit, though, that from its inception and its growth and its support, while it's a great thing that's happening, it does leave people scratching their head going, what's the point? What's the end game?
Yeah, sure.
And Ross Perot tried the same kind of approach many years ago at a different level.
How did he do?
Yeah, right. Well, he did affect a lot of change.
Well, he did, as a matter of fact,
Yeah.
and others have too.
Yeah.
Well, I think...
Well, I guess that's my question is, do you see this as a grassroots kind of movement?
I do. I think it already is.
Yeah.
Listen, small state, 1,000 people signing or 10,000 plus. If you look at comparative numbers, not that that's the most important thing in the world, for gosh sakes, we dwarf many other organizations, certainly twice the size or even 3 times the size of organizations that people talk about as if they're large and been here forever. We've been here for 2 years. I think we have significant support, and it's broad-based. And I don't know what the politics of the people are. My guess is it just cuts across the broad center. That said, can we get change done this way? Well, I've bet 2 years of my life on it, and I've bet really it's a commitment that transcends, I think, what people imagined.
Mm-hmm.
I've been fully involved with this, with my partners, because I believe in it. I think if people read our stuff, if they've been looking for an alternative path, I think we have good ideas. And I believe this sincerely, that good ideas at a time like this in America and in the world, certainly uncertain times still, are what people are looking for. They're not looking for easy solutions. They've given up on that. My gosh, they look at Washington and just, walk away from it.
Mm-hmm.
But in our state, a state that's very manageable, where we do know lots of people in common probably, this is an opportunity to try something different,
mm-hmm.
completely non-political, for the good of Vermont.
Mm-hmm.
And let people decide for themselves. If they like these ideas, they'll join and press the legislature and this administration to make changes.
Mm-hmm. 5 years down the road, when you're looking back, what are you hoping you're going to see?
Well, I hope most of our ideas have become part of the mainstream. This notion of building an economy or accommodating growth or something as part of the mainstream, that we've held on to, though, values that Vermonters hold dear, of not only offering a helping hand to our neighbors, but a comforting hand, that we are able to both build an economy and create shared prosperity while making sure that our neighbors who aren't well positioned are taken care of. That frugality and practicality, which have been long-time traditional values that we hold dear as well, are, if you will, the mirror opposite. So we're able to take care of people, clean the lakes or clean the rivers, make sure our water supplies are in good shape. We could return to our environmental roots because we have the revenues and the resources to do that. I think in 5 years or less, I believe strongly that our ideas, that our notions, that government should be working for the people, I mean all the people, and that should measure itself and should be critical of itself, are going to be ideas that are going to be, if you will, perfectly mainstream.
Mm-hmm.
You won't even wonder where it came from, but I believe it's going to be mainstream.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that in time, if you do see even greater strength in numbers, that you will, by the nature of those numbers, be forced to become more of a political arm of the state infrastructure?
No, I hope not.
Mm-hmm.
I think...
I mean for the purposes of having sway in the legislature.
Oh, well, maybe. But maybe that's a function of having lots of people signed on, so it gives us not only broad support in the community of Vermont, but more influence when we deal at a local level with the legislature or administration. I think there's room here for organizations like ours that are not single issue type things, have a broad-based approach to it. And I think if we are sensible about it, making sure that we hold on to the notion of not getting into the mud to argue about silly things, not being mean-spirited to others who don't agree with us, that eventually these are ideas that are compelling. And as the world continues to evolve, where 2% growth nationally becomes something we think is ordinary, as opposed to powerfully disappointing, where ongoing issues of volatility in the political scene, presumably in Washington, take out some part of our confidence in the future. These are things we're going to have to focus on, and I believe we will.
One more question.
Sure.
Do you feel that, are there issues that you started out with Campaign for Vermont that you have since abandoned because you realize, yeah, this isn't as bad as we thought it was, or this is something we don't want to tackle at this time?
No. No. In fact, if I were to do it again at all, I think we would be even more forceful about our ideas from the beginning. And I think live and learn. What I knew about public policy was quite limited. And how to do it, well, we're learning as we go. You're presumably better at this through practice, and I kind of believe in practice myself, and so we've gotten better. I think our ideas from the beginning have been good ones. We've shaped them better as we've gone. We've broadened the support of who helps develop the ideas and how to say it. And I think, I believe we're getting better at that kind of thing. And you know, it's live and learn. We've abandoned no ideas. All we've done is say it better.
How can folks see you online?
Oh my gosh, we're easy. campaignforvermont.org. We have a robust website. It tells you what we're doing. We put out an email blast at least once a week. We pose questions where you have an opportunity to either debate or simply say you like it or don't like it. We ask not so much of our readers, if you will, except we hope through this and other means, people will sign on as partners. I think they'll enjoy the experience, and they don't have to do a lot of work. We do a lot for them. But if you like one of our ideas or two of our ideas, you're going to like Campaign for Vermont.
Mm-hmm. Great. Bruce Lisman, thank you very much.
Oh, you're a good guy. Thanks so much.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for the invitation.
And thank you for joining City Room for another edition, and we will see you next week.